Well, what I would say about this cabinet is it's virtually the same as the last one. 15 of the ministers are Redford returnees. They were the same ministers at the table during the Redford era. There's only been 2 promotions. The most troubling thing is that there doesn't appear to be any accountability for wrongdoing. You've got the 2 ministers who oversaw the Sky Palace debacle, Wayne Drysdale and Rick McIver, still at the table. You've got the frequent flyer minister, the minister who flew the government planes the most, Robin Campbell, now in charge of the government fleet. That doesn't seem to be any sign that there's going to be accountability for those who misbehaved in the previous administration. I think the most troubling thing, and the only change that we do see, is that the 2 ministries that are the most important to Albertans, healthcare and education, are now being run by people who aren't even elected. So we've got more than half of the budget in the hands of individuals who have no accountability to the legislature, no constituency office that you can call if you want to complain, and who are now going to be in a situation where they're going to be distracted by a by-election. I do not think this is the change that Albertans were looking for. I do not think this is the change that Premier Prentice promised. And in fact, if you look pretty closely at it, it does just look like more of the same. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions. Any questions?
Leader, maybe my one.
Any questions? 16 of the 20 are the same. Is that enough of a change?
It's not enough of a change. I mean, I think when we were looking at all of the big promises of Premier Prentice, talking about change, talking about generational change, you've got 15 of the same ministers who are at the table in the Redford era. There have been 2 promotions, but again into junior positions. And the 2 individuals who are new, responsible for the most important portfolios of healthcare and education, are going to now be distracted by a by-election, and they don't have the same accountability because they're outside the legislature. I do not think this is the kind of change that that Mr. Prentice led us to believe that we were going to have. I don't think this is the kind of change that Albertans were looking for. I think this is just more of the same. In fact, it does also demonstrate how shallow the talent pool is in the PC party, that they couldn't find among their ranks 2 individuals to take over the most important portfolios, and so they've left it in the hands of unelected people. So I think that this is a disappointment and another example of just more of the same kind of governing.
And did you have Gordon Dirks in your pool?
I have to tell you, when they were talking about who they might recruit, that name did not come up. So I don't know much about Mr. Dirks, but I can tell you that we are going to be fighting very hard in all of the by-elections, including the one that he runs in. We think that Albertans want to be able to have an opportunity to send this PC government a message. This cabinet, again, just demonstrates with more of the same. We need to actually get new people in there representing different parties if we're going to see a real change.
Sorry, if I can ask one last question. Many suggest he's a bona fide social conservative. Is that going to pull support away from the Wildrose?
Again, I don't know. Is it dead? Okay, we can do more. Anyone else?
We're gonna have to do one-on-one because this thing is.
Yeah, for sure, no problem. You guys got what you needed?
Yeah, Danielle, what's the situation with the by-elections holding up the overturn? You're not really going to get a chance to get in there and mix it up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess what I'm most concerned about is you've got now a health minister and an education minister who don't have a constituency office, and yet we know from our own experience that the calls that we get most into our offices are in healthcare and in education. So how is anybody to be held to account when you've got 2 unelected cabinet ministers who are responsible for more than 50% of government spending, who don't have an elected mandate, and who are going to be distracted by a by-election? I think that this was a bad move, and I think it does just show how limited the talent pool is in the PC caucus. If he couldn't find talent to be able to take on the health and education ministries and had to go outside, but I don't think that this is something that Albertans were hoping for when it came to change. I don't think it's the kind of change Mr. Prentice promised, and to me it just looks like more of the same.
Bad move for him, good move for you?
I'm looking forward to getting into the legislature and holding this government to account, but I have to say they've got to win the by-elections first, and we're going to make sure that we put up a strong candidate and give them a strong run for their money in every single campaign. So that will be my first order of business, is holding them to account in a by-election, and we'll see what happens and who ends up getting into the legislature, but we're going to be putting forward a strong effort.
Do you think this cabinet represents, as he says, under quote-unquote Alberta under new management?
Absolutely not. It really is more of the same. If you look at the cabinet, you've got 15 of the same members returning. You've got a couple of promotions from within, but they're into junior positions. And then you've got the 2 most important and biggest portfolios, representing 50% of the government spending, being held by people who aren't even elected, who don't have a mandate. and who are going to now be distracted for the next couple of months trying to win seats in the by-election campaigns. This is not, I don't think, the kind of change that Albertans were looking for. And I think that you're going to see that Wildrose is going to put forward a strong effort in the by-election campaigns to make sure that Albertans have an opportunity to send this government a message. The PCs need to be sent a message.
There's going to be 3 by-elections for sure that we know of. The
Yep.
rest to come. Are you going to battle them each head to head?
We're going to battle in every single one. We're already getting ready. We've got a candidate who was selected last week in the riding of Calgary Elbow, John Fletcher. And we will be choosing our candidates in Whitemud and the riding that Mr. Prentice chooses to run in as soon as he announces where he's going to run. But we are going to have strong candidates in all 3 by-elections.
The honor now a special advisor. Any comment on that?
I think that Mr. Horner has demonstrated from the major missteps over the last couple of years that he should not have been in cabinet. The fact that he's not finance minister, the fact that he's no longer in charge of the government fleet, I think that's a good thing. But we would have liked to have seen more change. There were 2 other cabinet ministers who were responsible for Sky Palace, Wayne Drysdale and Rick McIver, and they're still in cabinet. Robin Campbell was the one who used the government planes the most, besides Alison Redford. Now he's responsible for the government fleet. If you really want to demonstrate that you're going to hold people accountable for wrongdoing, those were not decisions that I would have made. So I suppose he gets some marks for booting Horner out of cabinet, but I have to say I don't think he went far enough in addressing some of the wrongdoing that's taken place over the last couple of years.
Well, but how do you think this whole idea that this is a new government, they're presenting this cabinet, this is essentially a cabinet that they're going to basically run on in 18 months probably. I mean, and he said new cabinet, new way of doing things, new people, new portfolios.
Well,
What do you think Albertans will think when they finally have the experience of this new management?
Just because you keep on repeating something doesn't make it true. He also said that it was going to be a new generation of leadership, but I count a lot of gray hairs among the individuals who are in senior cabinet positions now. So this isn't a new cabinet. This is 15 of exactly the same ministers who were at the table when Alison Redford was premier. There are 2 outsiders responsible for over 50% of the spending in government who have no accountability because they have no elected mandate, and you've got 2 others that were who were elected in the last election, but who have been promoted. I have to tell you, looking at that doesn't look new to me. It's not new generation of leadership, and it isn't a brand new face. In fact, I think it is just more of the same, and I think people will see that. But it demonstrates how shallow the talent pool is in this government. There were a couple of names I'm surprised weren't in cabinet who had done a reasonably good job over the last little while, like Richard Starkey and Greg Wiedek. So now we have in municipal affairs yet another minister when we're still dealing with the problems of not having resolved all of the flood claims from over a year ago. So I feel really badly for the flood victims who have to get to know yet another new minister, and just surprised. There would have been a couple more that I think he should have booted, and a couple that I'm left scratching my head wondering why they got demoted.
What do you think of the Rick McIver appointment? Since just a few days ago, Rick McIver's advertisement on the radio said that do you want a leader with ethical issues who's an insider where there'll be more of the same?
Yeah.
Obviously, either he believes Mr. Prentice has had a great conversion in the last few days, or...
I have to say, I think that Mr. Prentice's promises ring hollow. When he talked about integrity and accountability and that people would be held accountable for wrongdoing, I don't see evidence of that. We see that Wayne Drysdale and Rick McIver, the 2 ministers responsible for overseeing the Sky Palace and doing nothing about it, are still at the table. And you see that Robin Campbell, the guy who used the government planes the most besides Alison Redford, is the guy responsible for the government fleet. So I don't look at this as any kind of change. I don't think he's living up to the words and the commitment that he gave us on the night he was elected. I think it's just more of the same. All right, thanks guys.